Hi everyone, happy holidays and welcome back to the second half of my model project. I'm going to be painting the Red Skull part of the model, the diorama between Captain America versus the Red Skull. And here you see I'm starting with the base coat color for the Red Skull's jumpsuit. It's a combination mix of Minotaur sewage water, which is like an olive green, more like an OD drab kind of color, and I added Raven Black to darken it up for the base color. So here I'm starting out using the Badger Patriot 105 to paint on the base color, and I use that airbrush mainly because it it has a bigger needle. Obviously, I think it's a 0.5 needle, so I can cover more area for bigger areas like this. And commonly, what I like to do is I switch over to my Sotar 2020, which has I think a 0.2 needle on there, or either that or I have one of the other ones, the Badger Velocity Raptor. I think it's called a Raptor. Anyway, the base coat's almost done, and you can see I didn't actually add any matte varnish or matte medium to this mix, and you can see it's actually, that's not it being wet, it's actually going on pretty shiny, which I've seen happens to be a common complaint with these paints. I started out putting in some of the details here using Minotaur sewage water straight, so didn't add any black to that. I'm using that as a first highlight, and I start just adding in the details, trying to keep the dark parts where the folds of the fabric, trying to keep those in the recesses. So I'm just trying to hit the high parts of the folds in the fabrics. Okay, first highlight has been applied, and I'm actually switching over to Vallejo Model Airs using Cam Light Green to lay in the second level of highlights to the fabric. And again, I'm hitting the high parts of the fabric where the folds are, muscle details, anywhere where I think should have focus. This paint is actually used straight from the bottle as well. Didn't do any kind of extra thinning. And then at this point, for the finer detail, I've already switched over to the other airbrush, the Sotar 2020 with the 0.2 tip, and I'm using an air pressure of approximately 15 to 20 psi. Okay, next level of highlights, I'm adding Tank Dark Yellow VMA to the previous color to lighten it up and give it kind of a warmer tint of a brownish shade to it. And I'm just, same thing, hitting the high parts and adding highlights to the previous highlights. Well, I don't want to cover up all the previous highlights, so I'm careful not to overdo it. Okay, at this point I want to strengthen the shadows using Game Color Black ink, slightly thinned out with some Flow Aid and water. It's a very thin mix. It's your basic, thinning mix for paint. I lowered the pressure on the airbrush down to probably around 12 or 13 psi, so I can control the flow of the ink wash better. And basically, what this is just kind of a wash. You can use this technique with any kind of wash that you prefer as well. Same effect, but it's just to strengthen the shadows and the folds. Okay, I'm now switching it over to Vallejo Game Color Chaotic Black, or whatever the Chaos Black paint is, to paint the boots and the gloves and the belt. So just solid black. Um, a little note here, I actually did do this in the video by brush. I kind of regretted that afterwards because I guess the paint clumped as it was drying. I'm not sure if it was something with my batch of Game Color Black, but it definitely did not dry evenly. So I actually revisited the boots later with some Raven's Black, using the airbrush just to smooth it out. After maybe smoothing out some of the lumps with a wet Q-tip. Once the black paint is dry for the belt, the boots, and the gloves, I applied a gray highlight using Vallejo Model Air German Gray, just to the top parts of the black sections. I could have gone with maybe a dark blue, but the common highlighting technique for black is usually a dark gray color. And now, after I've masked off the parts that I don't want to get any red paint on, I proceed to use Minotaur Nebula Red to base coat the red skull of the red skull. If you can notice here, the fabric parts that I already pre-painted before are a little bit glossy, and that's because I applied a gloss varnish to them to protect it, specifically from the masking tape, because if you're lucky, the masking tape won't pull up any of the paint, but why risk it? So just in between coats, varnish the colors you want to protect. Alright, now I'm highlighting the skull with angelic blood, and it's a pretty simple process. Just hit all the spots that look like they need light. Okay, now I'm going to wash the red skull with Games Workshop Ball Red Wash. Use whatever you have, whatever the new Games Workshop wash color is. I don't really know. I believe that Vallejo has a good red wash. A brown wash probably work just as well, just to get some shadows in there. So Agrath Earth Shade, or maybe even whatever sepia wash you have on hand would be more than adequate. Now I'm just going to use a little bit of Games Workshop chainmail just to paint his oddly shaped belt buckle. It does look a lot to me like one of those sprockets you put in the middle of a old record. So use whatever you have. Any kind of chainmail color is just as good. Moving over, I'm going to just wash the black parts just to tone down the gray highlights on the black parts. That should be leather. I'm using Army Painter Dark Tone Wash. Whatever black wash will work. And since the silver belt buckle also dried at this point, I'm going to wash that as well. Okay. At that point, the Red Skull model was complete, and here is a nice view of the base after it's been assembled and painted. Unfortunately, I didn't record this part of the process, but one of the nice things that I did was use the Ghost Tint Green on the skull container to give it a green transparent tint. As you can see in this zoom here, the skull is painted, but you can see here that the ghost tint gave it a really cool green effect. For whatever the hell reason, he's got a skull in the container, but it looks pretty good there. Gloss coated the black pipes, and let's see what else. Just various shades of silver and a blue-gray color for the base. Also used some ghost tint blue on the metallic parts back there. And here we have the completed model, fully assembled and on a rotating base. You can see the shield is completed. I think the hardest part of the entire process was the shield. It took me 2 days to try to get that straightened out, going between airbrush and hand painting and getting those black lines down and trying to get a perfect round stencil. Really was kind of a nightmare. So there probably was a better way for me to do it, but that's just the way it turned out. I think it looks good with the gloss coat, though. Gives it a nice shine, and you can see the boots and gloves are nice and shiny. And here's a little quick zoom in. The details look nice. It fits together very well, and it's a great dynamic diorama. And I really had a lot of fun doing this, and I'm really tempted to go on Amazon and find a couple of more of these older model sets, because with the right paint job, I think they look really great. And right now it's sitting in my living room, prettying up one of my bookshelves. I'd like to know what you guys think, and leave a comment and let me know. I know I didn't paint them back, but I don't think it was a detail that really warranted a lot of attention, so but I think the rest of it came out really, really great looking. Well, I hope you enjoyed this trip with me through this entire process. It was a lot of fun and a lot of work. Not as much as I thought it would be, but it does look great. Hope everybody's having a happy holiday, and come back soon for my next project. Bye.